my wife Martha woke me up with the news around 8 o'clock, and I just laid in bed for a few minutes and thought about so many things about David. And I guess the saddest thing for me personally, being a bit selfish about it, is I really wanted to see him again and maybe even work together with him again. As David was just a great person, really super smart, sharp-witted, very funny, fun to be around. He never took himself too seriously, even though he was a giant superstar. And everywhere you went, you got that impression from everything that happened around him and all the people. But when you traveled with him every day in a private plane or on a bus or somewhere around the world, you got to know that he was very interested in lots of things and very smart about all of them. One time, for example, we had a day off in Spain, and he and I decided to go to the Prado Museum. And as we were walking through, he ultimately became my art guide. Now, this picture over here, Adrian, for example, has a lot of purple and gold, because in that years the Pope decided that those are the colors that they would patronize. So he knew all these great things about art and stuff, and we just had a great time. Really funny person too. My first tour I ever did of Europe was with Frank Zappa, and David's producer Brian Eno heard us play in Cologne, Germany. He called David and said, "You've got to hear this guitar player that Frank Zappa has." So the very next night we played in Berlin, and there was a point in Frank's show every night where he would play a long solo and the band would leave, and I would come off the stage every night and just go have a drink of Coke or something. And this night I looked over, and there was, by the soundboard, there was David Bowie and Iggy Pop standing there. So I walked over and I shook David's hand and I said, "I just want to tell you how much I love you, your music, and thank you so much." And he said, "Great, how'd you like to be in my band?" And I said, "Well, I'm kind of playing with the guy out there." And he said, "Yes, I know, but your tour ends on this date and mine starts 2 weeks later. Can we talk about it over dinner?" And I said, "Yes." So we went out after the show, and that was that.
And now your friendship, tell me about your friendship after that. How long were you, I guess, playing for him, and just some of those moments?
The first time I played with him for a year and a half, and that was a long tour, but also some recordings and things. And I stayed at his house in Switzerland for a week one time as well, so we really became close friends. In fact, during that period, he showed me films that had influenced him and played me records and things, so we got to be good friends. The second tour I did with him was in 1990, and that was David's last hurrah tour for all of his hit songs. It was called Sound and Vision. Huge tour, $12 million stage and scrims that came down and huge things. And that went 108 shows around the world, 27 countries. We had a private jet, we had all those things. And so really every day of my life for that year, in 1990, I spent with David. And it was a life-changing experience in every way. In fact, I even met my wife on that very tour. It was something I wish everyone can experience, especially every recording artist, because to be on that level, playing in stadiums in front of those kinds of audiences, it's just it's like a dream, you know? And to be sitting in a restaurant with someone like David Bowie is not bad either. I've always been in the rock world. I grew up on the Beatles and grew up on David Bowie and grew up on King Crimson, a band that I ultimately played with. And so when I got in his band, I had played some of his songs in my cover bands and things before I started playing internationally. So I knew his music quite well, and it was a perfect fit for me. In fact, there's some wonderful YouTube videos where you see me and David on stage, and I'll be playing guitar and he'll just be standing there like this, just laughing at me, like, you know, he was so proud of me, I think, in a way, you know, when I was on the first tour with him when I was kind of young. So no, it was a pleasure and really helped me a lot because he was very encouraging. He never told me to do anything, or he just encouraged me, do whatever you want to do and just go wild. And that was, I mean, as a guitar player, that's what you want to hear. Well, you know, what's interesting is just a few years before he had played here, and I was in the audience there, I don't know, 20,000 people watching him play. About a year later, he put out the song Heroes. And I was driving in my little Volkswagen, and I was a poor, starving musician driving up 21st Avenue South and thinking, gosh, I love this song so much. 2 years later, I was playing it on stage with him. What happened in the interim is I played in a band called Sweetheart, very good band, well-dressed cover band that played here. And we played in a little bar called Fanny's, which was down on South Street, across from South Street Grill and all those restaurants down there. It's now a fabulous dog park, but at the time it was a dark, dank biker bar. And Frank Zappa came in town with his band. He played a concert, and afterwards they wanted to go out and see some music. So Frank asked his chauffeur, limo driver, where's your favorite band? And his name was, the chauffeur driver was Terry Pugh, young guy who liked our band, Sweetheart. So he took them to Fanny's, and there I was on stage, and Frank Zappa and his crew of people, you couldn't deny who they were, walked in, sat down, and listened to us for 40 minutes. Frank came up, shook my hand while I was playing Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, and said, I'll get your name and number from the chauffeur driver and audition you. And that's what happened about 6 months later. And then I got into Frank Zappa's band, and my life changed. And as I told you earlier, when we went to the first tour of Europe, my life changed yet again by meeting David at Frank's show. In 1990, the tour that we did around the world that was so huge, I was the only other person you could see on stage with David. It was a 60 by 60 foot stage with giant scrims and things in front of it, but you only saw two people, me and David Bowie. The band was hidden behind the stage. So he gave me that ability to be his person to play off of. And he wanted that. That's what he wanted. You know, I'll be the singer, you be my sort of, you know, I'll be Mick and you be Keith sort of thing. And so the encouragement of just letting me go wild on guitar really changed my guitar playing enormously, because I found a lot of new things to do, and it opened up just a floodgate of things for me. David's music just happens to be really good for guitar players. There are a lot of moments in his songs that open up for you to do some interesting guitar things. So some of the favorite things that I've done were done on his records. Now, the first time I ever recorded with him in 1979 was in Lake Geneva, Switzerland, and they put me in a room above the studio room. I couldn't see them, but they could see me with a TV camera, and they wouldn't let me hear the songs beforehand because they wanted to get my accidental responses. So they said, you'll hear a count off, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just start playing. I said, well, playing what? What key? They said, no, just start playing. And they would let me do that for 2 or 3 times, and then later on they'd take their favorite moments of my sort of accidental responses and turn that into a guitar track composite. And so songs on the Lodger album like Red Sails or I'm a DJ or Boys Keep Swinging, those are all guitar things that I never actually played. They were actually played one little bit here, one little bit there. That was Brian Eno's idea. My favorite thing about David always was, before I knew him and ever since, that he was the one super creative person who managed to make it popular as well. He would always change and do very unique, cutting-edge things, but somehow he would bring the whole world with him. So everyone would love the newest thing from David, even if it was really pretty outrageous and different. And it always was, because he changed a lot. So I think you should give him credit in our modern times as being one of the top innovators who really changed music for the world itself. And that was always a big thrill for me to get to know him and know how he did that and know about him as a person. And it's a big loss for all of us.